Hello and welcome back everybody. Today we're going to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 203, and before I begin this review I just want to say that I apologize that I haven't uploaded in a while. Like, I didn't upload the last chapter review, and obviously last week we didn't really have a chapter and I didn't really upload anything else, so my channel has been kind of dead for like 2 weeks straight. Really sorry about that if you did hope for videos, but yeah, I've just not really felt like uploading anything else. Quite frankly, I haven't really had anything else to upload, so that's the reason mainly. I mean, this arc of My Hero Academia hasn't really been my favorite, I'm gonna be honest, which probably also fuels the reason as to why I didn't upload the last chapter review, because I just didn't feel like I wanted to review that chapter. But I figured despite what this chapter is gonna be like, I wanted to review it in some shape or form, so here we go. Chapter 203, the match between Iida, Todoroki, Ojiro versus, Class 1B. We have Tetsu, we have Yuzo, we have the guy with the spinny arms, can't quite remember his name, doesn't really matter though. And I mean, I think this chapter was quite nice because it really shows us that despite the fact that Todoroki is like a beast, everyone knows it, Todoroki has immense power behind his quirk. Even just using his eyesight, you can get some seriously devastating power out of it, and that's not even counting the fire side of his quirk. It really showed that other quirks can counter it despite that. We have quirks that can actually make a difference to Todoroki's eyes, because we saw Yuzo, who has a quirk which can, soften things, and he tried to use it on the ground, of course, to make people not be able to mobilize as easily, but Todoroki used his eyes in order to prevent that. But then obviously Todoroki's eyes is no exception to that. Yuzo was able to soften his eyes as well, which created even more problems with Class 1A. So Class 1A definitely had some obstacles going into this match. Now the match isn't over by any means, but we definitely see some really interesting things by the end of the chapter, which I'm gonna get into later. But I really just want to talk about Todoroki, because I'll be honest, I thought Todoroki was going to straight up dominate this match. Like, I thought it was gonna be the case, and I'm really happy that I was wrong, because I just don't like seeing the the overpowered character just straight up blitzing and winning everything. So it's quite nice to see that there is at least some resistance from Class 1B this time around. We haven't really seen Bakugo's match. We don't really know if that's going to be the case for him as well. I reckon it will be, because as I've said in a couple of other reviews, the teachers did mention that Class 1B has had a lot more progression than Class 1A, which obviously means that we're going to see some really good stuff coming from Class 1B that we haven't really seen before. Like, we're having a lot more detailed descriptions of people's quirks that we didn't know before as well, which I also like to see, because Class 1B has been in the shadow for a very long time before this arc started. Like, even in the Forest Camp arc, in the Sports Festival, the arcs where Class 1B had some kind of role, we didn't really get much information about their quirks and their characters, to be honest, apart from like the main 3 or 4 guys, which was like Momo, Tetsu, Kendo, and maybe Pony. But even Pony and some other characters, we didn't know the extent of their quirk. All we really knew was the name of their quirk, and we could speculate as to what that quirk would actually be doing. But in this arc, we're really getting some more information about a lot of the quirks. Like, let's take Pony for instance. We learned this chapter that she's able to launch her horn from her body, which we didn't know before. In fact, I actually thought she was more of a close-up fighter, where she would just be able to charge and have the characteristics of a horse or whatever she's supposed to represent. I mean, I guess it's a horse because she's called Pony, but she also has horns, which is kind of, conflicting in a way. But yeah, anyway, so I'm really glad we got to see that. And like I said, I'm also really happy that Todoroki didn't simply just defeat this team instantly, because that's what you'd expect to happen with someone with a quirk as powerful as Todoroki. And in the chapter, one of the members in Class 1B actually mentions that they're really happy he didn't use his fire side of his quirk, because that would cause them to be completely hopeless. So in a way, he is actually able to probably blitz this team, at least in a way. I mean, I'm sure they could respond to his fire in some way as well, but one of them mentioned that they would be kind of hopeless if it were to use his fire side, which kind of implies that Todoroki was going easy on them. I mean, personally, I don't really think he was going easy on them. It's just that obviously his fire side is probably a lot more dangerous than his ice side. Like, I don't think he can perfectly control it yet, and if that were to get out of control, things could get really bad. Also, the teachers mentioned something about, they have to keep damage to a minimum, and fire can can potentially do a lot more damage than ice, because the ice will likely stick to everything rather than actually destroy it, whereas the fire could end up, you know, burning or melting stuff, which could become really bad. So I'm really happy that we see Todoroki probably at least take that into account when using his quirk, you know, because he knows exactly how powerful it is. Speaking of Todoroki, the one really interesting thing in this chapter that at least I found to be really interesting, and it's to do with Shota's relation to his father, you know, Endeavor and Shota's relationship, because as we know, this relationship has been progressing quite a bit, but we also know that Shota, he doesn't accept his father entirely just yet. I mean, he's willing to see that there's good in him, but so far, you know, they're not exactly in the green just yet. And it's very visible when you look at the panels that we got with Endeavor when he was looking at his phone and Shota was actually leaving the messages that Endeavor had sent him on read, which is something you'd expect to see like in the modern world, like in real life. So I really like how Horikoshi is actually implementing, I guess, real life culture into My Hero, since it is supposed to be taking place in the real life world, just in the future in some shape or form, like not too far into the future of course, but just a little bit into the future. Now let's talk about Iida, because Iida had a really interesting development in this chapter, which was mostly just at the end of the chapter, but we see how obviously Iida, he is struggling with the softening of the ground in this chapter, which is quite understandable. I mean, Iida, he has to run on ground in order to really move forward. He doesn't have the luxury of, say, Todoroki, who can use his eyes to get around, or as Ojiro, who can actually swing around. Iida has to move around by actually running, which creates a lot of issues, and we see that throughout the chapter how he is struggling with the ground and he is being immobilized quite easily until the very end of the chapter, of course, where he has to reveal this new move, which is Recipro Turbo, and I think this is quite nice. Now of course we don't know how this move is going to operate differently from Recipro Burst. All we know is that Recipro Turbo is supposedly stronger, faster, whatever, you know, I have no idea, but I really hope that it really steps Iida's game up a little bit, because so far Iida hasn't really been that relevant since the Stain arc, and I'm really happy that Iida is being brought to light again, because he really needs it, in my opinion, because while some people may not view it like this, at least in my opinion, and I think a lot of people can agree, or at least understand where I'm coming from when I say that Iida is supposedly part of the main cast, that being like the top 5 people in Class 1A, not in terms of strength, but in terms of relevance. But because he hasn't had that much screen time, he hasn't really fit into that description as of late. But maybe in this match he'll change that. Maybe we will be getting some more Iida stuff soon in the manga, and I really hope so, because he's just one of those characters that actually has a lot of potential, but because he's not really given much screen time or much relevance in the manga and the anime, you can't really love him as much as some other character. It's just not possible. But beside that, I'm really curious to see exactly which team is going to win this match, because obviously, as we know, Todoroki is in this match, you know, they have a huge advantage because of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean by default that they're going to win, because it's a team effort and it is a capture your teammates sort of match, not just a defeat your opponents kind of match. So even if you could defeat them, there's no guarantee that he could hold them in place for long enough to capture them. So I mean, in a way I kind of hope Class 1B wins, but I'm kind of expecting Class 1A to win this one, mostly because of plot, but also because, you know, you have both Iida and you have Todoroki in this match, and with Iida having developed this new move, it just kind of makes sense for them to become even stronger than they were in this chapter, in my opinion. So I'm gonna end this review here. I would like to know what you guys think about this chapter 203 of My Hero Academia. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it meh? You know, just let me know down below, and as always, if you did, be sure to smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember everyone, Toga is waifu, Toga is life.